Hello, my name is Sheila Keller, and I'm a student at George Mason University in the Health Informatics program. This is a presentation for course HAP 671, Healthcare Databases, and the topic is SQL Procedures and Nested Queries. In SQL, procedures, also known as stored procedures, can be utilized when the same portion of code that performs data manipulation needs to be executed multiple times. This procedure subroutine can be called to repeat several times in the SQL code, reducing the number of times the code needs to be written in order to perform the desired data manipulation, such as inserting, updating, and deleting data. This allows an advantage in coding because the portions of code that can be reused make it more efficient. The create procedure statement creates the procedure, while the drop procedure statement deletes the procedure. Here is an example of a procedure syntax. In this syntax, you can start with the create procedure statement followed by your unique procedure name. An alternate replace statement can be used to replace an existing procedure. The procedure name should not contain a space or be a reserved name. Next, you can optionally set your parameters from which the parameter name, mode, and data type is set. Parameters are used to pass values to the procedure. The default in mode means that a value will be passed from the outside. It receives the value from the calling program. It's a read-only variable and its value cannot be changed. The out mode is used to return a value to the calling program, so inside the procedure it acts as a variable. Its value can be changed. The in-out mode passes the initial value to a subprogram and returns an updated value to the caller. So in this instance, it can be assigned a value when the program is called, and that value can be updated in the procedure. The type refers to the data type assigned to the parameter, such as integer, float, or variable character. The is-as clause sets the context to execute the stored procedure. You use is when the procedure is nested in other blocks, and you use as when the procedure is standalone. The execute command runs the standalone procedure. The procedure body is the executable section where the code to perform the executable is set. Input variables are modified to produce output variables. This is a procedure example to calculate the likelihood ratio associated with a specific diagnosis. The line circled creates the procedure named likelihood ratio with the three parameters of diagnosis, alive, and dead, and the data types of variable character, float, and float respectively. After the begin statement is the body of the procedure, which is the executable code. This code allows the computer to calculate the likelihood ratio for the diagnosis codes to call the procedure. The first part of this executable, it determines if a patient has a diagnosis, if the patient is dead or alive, and stores that data into a temporary table called temp1. In the second part of this executable, the likelihood ratio is calculated for the patients who have a diagnosis from the temp1 table. To initiate the procedure, the reserved word execute is followed by the procedure name and the parameters of the procedure, which need to be separated by commas. The declare command is used to declare the procedure parameters. Then the set command is used so we can select specific diagnoses to be used in our procedure. On the final line, we use the execute command to run the procedure from the previous slide for likelihood ratios, and the variables, diagnosis, alive, and dead, in this block of code is used as parameters in the procedure. A nested query, also known as an inner query, is a query within another query. It is a compact code that is written with fewer lines but may still take the same amount of time to process or execute. A nested query is contained by parentheses at the beginning and end of that code. The code within the parentheses is evaluated first before the code on the outside of the parentheses. The nested query code must be able to function by itself, and the outside code is dependent on the value of the nested query. Nested queries can be set in select, from, or where commands. This is a nested query example to find the last patient visit and their diagnosis. The highlighted lines are the nested queries which we assign alias A and alias B, which are interjoined to generate the data for the outer code to utilize. Instead of creating a temporary table to house the nested queries, then running the outer code, the nested query format allows us to run it all at once, first executing the code within the parentheses, then using the values from within the parentheses to execute the rest of the outer code.